The World of Company Secretaries. This is an interview show where we talk with different company secretaries in India and abroad and also doing different aspects of law and practicing in different areas. And joining me today is a special guest, Goda Raghavan. Hello, Goda, and welcome to the World of Company Secretaries.
Hi, hello. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so before we go ahead, I would like to introduce Goda to our audience. Goda is a law graduate from the Bangalore University, that is University Law College. She's also done her master's in London School of Economics. Besides that, obviously, she's a company secretary. That is why she's on our World of Company Secretary show. And what is interesting is Goda was a gold medalist in the CS Foundation. And now Goda is a partner at AK Law Chambers and she heads the corporate practice for the firm. And Goda's firm is based in Chennai and in Bangalore, and she has clients across India and the world. So, Goda, we are very happy that you spared some time, and the audience here are students. I'm sure they're very eager to listen to you.
Thank you so much, Alok, for having me here. It's always a pleasure to interact with students and share a little bit of experiences that we have gathered along the way over the last decade or so.
Yeah, that's nice to know that you're here, and we are happy that you're addressing the students. So, the first thing, Goda, usually what we do on this show is we first talk about what you do now, and then we go back to your days of a student. Because for students to understand that, okay, we were in the pretty much same situation where most of our guests are today. So, if you could please tell us right now, what do you do, and what does your firm do in brief?
Okay, so as a firm, we are a multi specialty firm, as in we provide disputes and non disputes. So I provide the transactional services for the firm. Primarily, what I do is I work with startups very closely. I advise them starting from incorporating the company, registering trademarks, their general corporate requirements like drafting agreements, reviewing it, negotiating on their behalf. If a company is looking to raise funds in the form of equity or borrow money in the form of debt, then I help with the structuring of the transaction. Sometimes money comes in from abroad, so I also advise on, say, FEMA advisory, or if it's a listed company, then there'll also be the SEBI advisory. Uh, Primarily, this is my area of work. In addition to this, we also advise on mergers and acquisitions and setting up of joint ventures in India.
So that's really nice to know that you did your CS and your law, and now you head a corporate law firm where you said you're a multidisciplinary firm, but you had the corporate law practice and transactions. So this is very inspiring for most of the students, I'm sure. So before we even go ahead with what are your future plans and what your firm does as a whole, first, when was the first time you heard the word company secretary and why did you take up the course?
Actually, that's a very interesting story. Uh, I'm a third generation lawyer, actually, to be frank about it. I'm a third generation lawyer. I was not even aware that there is a course called a company secretarieship. And at one point in my second year of law school, second year of law school, I had injured my leg. And then my father came to me and said, there's this course, it's called the company secretary course. I brought all the forms, just sign it. I think it will be a great value add. And to be honest, he thought that I should pursue CS as a mainstream profession and keep law as a add-on degree, even though my program is a 5-year law program. So he said, you complete your CS course and become a practicing company secretary or an in-house company secretary as well. Not really knowing what the course would entail as such, I signed the form and I went to the institute and I gave in the forms and it just started from there. I wasn't really sure what it would entail, but today when I look back, I'm so glad that I did what I did and it just happened that I took on this course because I see a lot of value add which I bring to the table for every transaction. Maybe not directly because I cannot be a practicing company secretary and a lawyer. So I can't, what do you say, approve forms or upload forms or sign on behalf of a company. But just to have a holistic view as to, timelines, what are different forms? If a procedure needs to be done, like for example, let's say a buyback needs to be done what is a sort of a timeline that would entail. Legal aspect is one thing, but practically getting it done, if they have to choose between, let's say, a demerger or doing a slump sale, which is the option that they would choose. There is a legal aspect of it as to how you would go about it, but understanding the secretarial aspect, which is equally important in deciding which would be a better option, I think my qualification as a company secretary has added a great value to it.
I think your story was very interesting, and also for the audience, the anecdote which you shared that your father was actually suggesting that you can consider CS as a full time profession, he himself being a lawyer and a successful advocate, and he told you to do the CS course. And now you're telling that it was a great value add. I think these are the stories which really inspire students. So now that you took up the course, and like you said, when you took it up, you are not very sure, but looking back, you're very happy that you took it. So while you were doing, because there are a lot of students of us and a lot of our audience who are doing CS and law together, or if not law, they're doing some other course together. There are a lot of challenges. So what were the challenges you faced while doing these courses, that is law and CS together?
For me, I wouldn't say challenge as such, to be honest, because I actually enjoyed the process completely. I think that it was effort, but I wouldn't say it was too much of a challenge as such. The only sort of a strenuous time of sorts uh, that I really had to push myself through was during the time of giving the exams, because inevitably the exam for all the three courses would clash with our law exams. And as you know, I mean, when we wrote our exams, the exams are back to back, right? It
Yes.
continues block, and all my three levels I gave it in one shot, right? So it's not like I split the groups and took it separately. I took all the three groups or two groups or whatever for each level together in one shot. So that December was actually the time of the year that I chose to give even the CS exam along with law. So literally the entire month of December for 2 years in a row, I was just writing exams. So preparation was that much more, and at the end of it, I used to be exhausted. But again, like I said, for me, it felt like a sense of satisfaction. To be honest, I
Yeah,
felt that I had proven to myself that I could push the limit. Right? Well,
exactly.
okay, we had maybe 4 or 5 papers in law, but here in the professional level, we were looking at 9 papers, 3 plus 3 plus 3 modules, right?
Yes.
So 5 plus 9 was 14 papers back to back of completely unrelated subjects. It's not that, oh, if you studied law, the syllabus would kind of overlap with, I think, excepting business law, nothing else was overlapping as such. It was completely different. So I think that, yes, doing the two courses together, this would be the issue. And then in addition to this, I was not very good on the taxation front. So I had to take coaching for that. And added to that, anyway, the same sir who taught me also would coach for accounting. So I took up both, right? And those classes were at 6 in the morning. And towards the fourth and fifth year of law, I also did my 15-month training with GMR. And so literally my day started at 5 o'clock in the morning. Then I would finish, coaching and then go to college. And from there directly go to office. And I'd be in office till about, 9:30, because I went in only by 1:30 till about 9:30. And then get back home and then either prepare, study, or you already have your study schedule, which you need to put in place. So it was a very packed schedule, but it was a good challenge in a way. It pushed a limit that I thought that I myself couldn't do, but at the end of it, I look back, it all looks good.
Yeah, I think the one word which I could really catch from your entire explanation about your days as a student was preparation. Because you said, though it was a challenge, you pushed yourself and you made sure that not only did you go to college, you also prepared well and wrote the exams back to back for law and CS. So, for the students, in fact, I would just like to draw their attention here before we go to the next question. Actually, as a student, you have more time than you think. In fact, now as professionals, if you want to study something, it's really a huge challenge now to think of studying something or taking up academic course. So coming back to Goda. So now that you said that you sailed through the CS and law, what is the value add which you feel for a student who is doing CS law? How does law add the value? Because here a lot of our students are doing only CS. So will a 3-year law course help them, and what would your inputs be?
Definitely. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think that CS and law really come together. It's quite a marriage, actually, to be honest, right? I think that they complement each other really well. Whether you're going to be a company secretary with a LLB degree add-on, or you're going to be a lawyer with a CS degree add-on, whatever you decide, as and when you start practicing. But let me also add over here that I don't think at any point in time you'll be able to confidently say, oh, this is what I want to do. You really just go with the flow. You used to go with the flow, you take up whatever opportunity comes, you start doing it. Along the way, at some point, you'll settle down into one area of work, or you'll realize, okay, this is where my opportunity lies. This is where I can kind of capitalize on what is it. So whether you want to pick up law or you want to pick up CS as a mainstream is something that you can decide on the way. Now, how does the other professional degree kind of add up to what you're doing? Now, as a lawyer, whether you do disputes or you do transactional work, I think CS is always an add-on because, like I told you before, the practical aspects of it. Law is theory. Okay, if you do X thing, I mean, you're permitted to do X and Y. If you don't do it, this is the penalty. Pretty plain and simple. Now, how
Yes,
do you do a certain thing is what CS teaches you, right? Under the
the
company
practical aspect.
completely practical as on the corporate law side, obviously, right? So then you say, okay, entire companies act, you can split it into two, three maybe. The dispute side where you have non-compliance, then the corporate transaction side, whereas you do a business. How do you go on with a business? And the secretarial aspect of it, how do you practically do a certain thing? You want to take a business decision, right? What is the legality part? Your law degree helps you say, okay, this is compliant. You want to borrow some money, what is the equity debt ratio you need to maintain? Who can you borrow from? How much can you borrow? You want to lend, how much can you do? But how do you actually borrow it? How do you document it so that you remain legally compliant? How do you maintain corporate governance? And today, I think one thing which is lacking majorly is corporate governance. Somehow, at least in the startup space, entrepreneurs are so focused on just
The
doing
business and growing.
their business that corporate governance has taken a huge backseat.
True.
And what companies do is, first up, they don't come to a lawyer, which is what I've seen. And I'm like, why do you come to a lawyer only when something has gone wrong, right? Nobody comes to a lawyer first, but they come to a company secretary first, because
Exactly.
they say, okay, in a year you have to maintain all your minutes, and all the meetings need to be done quarterly, annually compliances need to be done. So they'll come to a company secretary first. Now, as a company secretary, your duty not lies just in complying with, what the promoter or the founder or, the board told you to do. But if you go that extra step and give them that little bit of legal advice, saying, sir, okay, this is what you have done, but this is how you could do it to stay within, being legally compliant. To say, okay, I've borrowed money, give me a resolution is one thing. But if he comes and says, okay, no, listen, but you can do certain things, you can't do certain things. These are the outside of the secretarial corners. In the legal aspect, this is what you can do. I think that brings a lot of value add. And I think today there's a huge space for that kind of dual qualified professionals to fill. Every law firm is looking for a company secretary who has that kind of legal backing, and every CS firm is looking for a lawyer to whom they recommend their clients to, who at least preliminarily can tell the client, okay, keep this in mind when you do this. Ensure that you keep these secretarial compliances in mind. So I
Yeah,
think this is how these two kind of go together.
yeah, I think this is the value add I would want to draw our audience to, because when we get an expert and who's been in the field, see what Goda is trying to share is that law is a great course, so is CS, but when they come together, 2 plus 2 is always more than 4 when these two courses come together. And she shared some of the examples of how a law firm is looking for a CS, and same way a CS firm is looking for a lawyer who can give the right inputs, and the kind of work that is happening, there's a lot of value add when you do both together. So now that we know that, Godas, can you please tell us about your initial days? So, how did you start off working, and when did you start thinking of a law firm? If you could share your early days of practice.
So once I graduated from law school, by which time I had finished my company secretary course
CS.
as well, CS as well. And I've always wanted to do a master's in law. So I applied and I got into London School of Economics. Around that time, I had somewhat realized that I want to do law as mainstream and keep my company secretary qualification as I mean, not really get my practice certificate of practice.
Yes, got it.
So at that point, I said, okay, let's. I finished my master's in law. It's a 1-year program. I finished that and I came back, and then I joined a law firm, and I worked with them for about 3.5 to about 4 years, close to.
Okay.
Which is where it just happened that I picked up corporate law. That's transactional law. It was not intentional. Like I told you in the beginning, right? That yeah, somehow I don't. When students come and tell me, "Oh no, I don't want to do this," as their opening sentence, I say, "No, I think that approach is wrong because you'll never know what you don't want to do."
Exactly.
Right? Just you go with the flow. What you're doing 5 years ago and today, 5 years hence, there's a huge difference in your thought process, your maturity, and more than anything, what the market wants. Right? 5 years ago in law school, I mean, out of personal experience, I learned nothing of what I do today.
True.
PE, private equity, was not even a word. It was not a market requirement at that point in time. 10 years ago, it was just not even a market requirement. Today, there's so much happening, so much activity, so much business in this private equity space that, okay, maybe it was a good thing that I didn't resist the flow of things. So then once I finished about 4 years, by which time I had handled enough number of deals on my own to have the confidence to be able to advise my own clients. And by that time, I had what do you say, picked up some small clients of my own. So I thought, okay, maybe this is a good time for me to set up my own practice. So then when I set up my own practice, we said, okay, I'm going to focus on building the corporate transactional practice of the firm, while my partner would handle the disputes practice of the firm. And initially, yes, I think individual practice is something that is very difficult, whether it is on day one or today when I've put in, more than 10 years of practice per se. Because I mean, you can say money is not important, but somebody has to pay your bills. You have to maintain, you have to maintain your office. So the uncertainty of income is a big issue, right? So I think retainerships is one way of, at least to be able to say, okay, minimum, this is how much I can plan with that. Anything over and above that is always, a bonus. So the initial few days are obviously very difficult because work was also very uncertain. First 2 years, work is very suddenly, there'll be a flurry of work that's coming in, and then suddenly for a month or two, you're just sitting there with almost no work, wondering, was this a good decision? The reason why I set up my own practice and not joined, one of these bigger law firms that have, 200 plus lawyers or whatever, is because according to me, whether it's right or wrong is a very individual thing. I like the fact that I am client facing. I'm the first person with the client. I'm literally thrown into the deep sea. And whether I do something right or I do something wrong, it's all my own. It's credit and a discredit just to my own name. If you're part of a big firm, by the time you rise to a partner level, it takes you a minimum 10, 12 years in that firm, a sustained effort in that firm.
True.
I feel that at some point many people lose that steam, and by the time you reach that top, that kind of drive is somehow, some
Yes.
people obviously driven generally,
It's
but when you
subjective.
have your own practice, that urge to go out and get clients, the urge to do the things, writing or speaking at seminars or contributing articles, generally being seen out there to get work, the drive is always there. That's exciting for me, and yeah, that's the reason why I chose to set up my
Yeah,
own practice.
again, I'm really enjoying this interview. I'm sure students will, because see, you're giving your practical experience and also you're being very honest. And what I really liked and also want to draw the attention of the students and viewers is that please be open to everything. Like Goda was sharing, she was not sure or she never thought that one day she'll have her own firm at her early age. But then, because she was open to law, because she was open to the CS course and did everything that came away, later everything came together. And you can't foresee 4 years, 5 years, 10 years when you're in your early 20s. So I think this is really great value add which you're telling, and I'm sure students will take a leaf out of it. So now that you told, again, I'm very happy where you shared the honest thing that initially it's not easy in practice and it takes time, but it's very satisfying on a whole. So what were the kind of clients you were getting in the initial days? Like what kind of work would they come to you? Because end of the day, you're not a very big law firm when you start off. So can you please share about that?
So literally the first few months in, actually, I was lucky to have gotten one retainer client, which is my first retainer client, which kept a very fundamental source of income. And obviously, you need the income to keep the motivation going. At
True.
some point, doing work is one thing, but other than that, there was a lot of work which I was undercutting and doing because I wanted to get the client's confidence. I wanted to be able to convey to the client that, listen, I'm capable of doing very good quality work. You will learn on the job, but you say, okay, this is, I'm capable of doing, and I'm capable of stepping up based on that particular situation. So initially we did very, very, basic work like just, general contract review. I wouldn't say basic because each transaction has its own value. It's not monetary indication of the transaction is not
Exactly.
everything, right? So for that moment, that particular strategic uh, contract may be of great value. It may be a make or break for that particular client. So I did anything and everything which came my way, starting from, like, actually we even did this one thing where there was a dispute on a board, and there were allegations against the company secretary and the what you said, the chartered accountant, saying that documents were not in place, etc., etc. So there was a lot of complaints which were filed with the institute, filed with the ROC, things like that. So in the initial few days, I took on anything and everything which came by. And as things picked up, but let me pause and actually tell you one pretty interesting thing. A
Please.
lot of clients actually come to me saying, oh, she has a dual qualification, which is CS and law. So I don't need to go to anybody else. I can just go to her as a one-stop stop of sorts, right? Then after they come to me, then I say, okay, no, but listen, I'm not a practicing company secretary, and therefore I can advise you, but I can't sign your forms or submit your forms on your behalf. But I will work with somebody who
Yes.
can do this, right? So from a client's point of view, they are very happy that they can go to one person. Whether you do it yourself or you get it done through another professional is
It's a
secondary.
one-stop shop for them.
Yes, and that's a big add-on for us. Secondly, I think for me, using social media has been a big thing, especially LinkedIn, to talk about the work I do. Because today, this is a view that I share very openly. I think doing good work is just not enough. You need to talk about your good work.
Exactly.
You need to talk about it. Otherwise, there are enough and more people who don't do as much work, but just talk so much that the market thinks that, oh my God, this is look at how much work this person or this organization or this firm or whatever is doing. Right? So you need to. Well, we learn that you're not supposed, whether you're a lawyer or a CS, you're not supposed to market yourself. You can't advertise. You can't do all of that. But what are you
Yes.
permitted to do? You're permitted to write, you're permitted to talk at webinars or seminars or whatever it may be. And you're permitted to generally interact with other people on a platform like LinkedIn so that you're in people's minds.
Yeah,
Things
end of
that
the
you
day, there you're not telling them, come and give me work. You're just telling
exactly,
about your work. That's allowed. Exactly.
exactly. So in that sense, I think so yeah, from initially starting off with routine contracts, simple, let's say setting up an ESOP scheme or a simple trust document, all of that. Today, I mean, like I was, telling you a few minutes ago, we just closed a private equity deal 3 days ago. A Bangalore-based company got 100 crore rupees funding from a private equity fund, for which I was the legal advisor for the company and the promoters. So it's not that only the big firms get big work. You just have to be good to get big work.
Yeah, so there, before you go ahead, because I want to draw the context to the audience. So this is Goda here, who just closed 100 crore private equity or an investment for one of our clients, and it is the same Goda who didn't know what is CS, and her father told to sign these documents and take the course. So this is the thing. What is the growth you can see, and this is just one example where Goda is talking to us today. So I hope you students get inspired by this. So even you can close a huge deal tomorrow, though you feel you're a student and you don't know much. Like Goda said, please be open to everything and do everything that comes your way. Yes, please go ahead, Goda. About your practice, and after that, what are the kind of clients you got in the second stage of kind of clients you got?
I don't know if I can, call it stage wise, to be honest. There
Yeah.
is the initial struggling phase, and
Yes.
then there is the after phase. I don't think there's
Okay.
any more phases after that because you're constantly pushing yourself, right?
True.
Like today we've done, I mean, I think I've advised close to, 100 plus deals easily. Okay. But you can't just sit back and say, okay, this is it, right? You're looking for bigger deals. You want to do more interesting work. You want to do more, what do you say, cross border work, right? And
Exactly.
but let me tell you, because we have students who are watching this. I honestly had no idea that I would be here 10 or 15 years ago. And let me tell you one more thing. While I have a vision for myself today, saying, okay, today we have done this particular deal. Going forward, I want to do bigger deals or more variety work or whatever. Things may change on the way. Maybe more specializations may come in, and I may myself, you know, work towards that particular specialization. But it's not that you set your goal on day one, and then 10 years down the line, you're still pursuing that goal. I don't think, I think I can speak for majority of us on this side of the table. I don't think we thought 10 years or 15 years ago this is where we want to be,
True.
right? So yeah, I mean, um, but let me tell you one more thing, right? So we recently did this one transaction where we were advising a company for giving an exit to one of the investors. Investor wanted his money back. He wanted to leave. So, as a lawyer, we put forth, along with some of the consulting firms, we put forward several structures, saying you can do a buyback, you can give them an exit, you can do a secondary sale, you can do many things. How do you give money back, right?
Yes.
At this point, and actually on this transaction, is where my sense, my education of company secretary education came so much in handy, because there were several lawyers. There were lawyers for the investor, there were lawyers for the promoter, lawyers for the company, several investors, many things, right? There's so many people at the table. But I think the simplest solution,
Dimension.
yeah, just a dimension that you bring to the table, saying, okay, you may give many structures, but practically, if I go to the ROC at this point in time, I'm never going to be able to get the approval,
Yes.
right? Instead, why don't you do it this way? So, and at that point, there was a company secretary who was on this deal, who was also a CA.
Okay.
Okay, and he did a beautiful job. He cut down the entire transaction fully with all the complexities, and he said, you know what? Accounting wise, I will, this can be done on the accounting front, and therefore it will be possible to come within, that 25% for buyback, this, that,
Hmm.
whatever. And therefore, we can do this in a very simple way. It was a huge deal with so many, literally all the big four accounting firms, this, that, all of that. But end of the day, the structure came down to literally a very simple solution, which was given by by a dual qualified person. The dual qualification was, the company secretary and CA. He gave
Hmm.
it was just simply brilliant, and that only came from just having that kind of a perception.
Yes, I think what I'm really enjoying, and I'm sure students too, are how honest and frank you are. And this is what students should also understand, that we are not here just to give you a rosy picture that from day one everything is going to be great. But if you keep putting in the efforts, you'll get all the things you want and you will be successful. So, Goda, digressing a little bit now from your initial days and, like you said, the struggling days, and then later, I'm going to digress a little bit because there's a sizable chunk of our students who say we are girls, and for girls we don't have equal opportunity, or some are like they're working and they're also married, or some have kids. So they are always demotivated from different things, or they feel there are too many distractions. So being a woman and also going through everything else which most of women do, what are your words of wisdom for these girls and ladies?
Let me tell you one thing. Honestly, I agree with all the sentiments. It is very, very difficult to be able to
Juggle
uh,
everything.
no, juggle is one thing, but even if you're not juggling anything, even if you're just having your profession and not really, married or having a
Mm.
dependent on you, or older parents, younger children, whatever it may be, even if you're pretty independent in a young family setup or whatever it
Yes.
is, I think it is a very man-driven, uh, you know,
Industry.
profession, right?
Yes.
To be able to carve your niche in, it's going to take you that level of determination and the drive and the urge to want to succeed. And I think that irrespective of what people say, right? I mean, I can give you several such examples that I myself have gone through. Till maybe about say 3-4 years ago, if I said, gave a particular solution, somebody would come and say, "Oh, but Illa madam, can you please ask sir to say the same thing?" And I'm like, "What is this?" I'm giving you the same thing. What do you mean by can you ask sir to say the same thing? Okay, it was not okay. Somehow they thought that advice which came from a woman is, even though it's the same thing, is to be taken less seriously than what is to be taken. I mean, then an advice given by a man, right? You can either sit back and say, "Oh, but this is so hard. I don't like the way I was treated," or all of that, or you can say, "It's fine. If you think that I'm this thing, at some point I'm going to prove to you that even though I'm a woman, that doesn't matter, right? We put in as much effort to study, we put in as much effort to get to where we are. So that's it. That's how it is." So let me just tell you, personally how I have been kind of doing this, because I have two little children of my own, and now working from home, online school, everything, all of that put together.
Yes.
And this entire deal which we did just now was literally sitting out of my bedroom with one table which I put in place, because I said, listen, I need to do this. Like, you can't say, "Oh, there are children in the house and they have school going on," and things like that. As a woman, you can pick and choose what is the type of work that would suit the particular phase of life that you are in. Okay. Just because you're getting married, that does not mean that you need a 1 year break, right? You don't need it, because the minute you start taking yourself seriously, everybody else will start taking you seriously. Everybody, whether it's your family, your friends, your professional colleagues, everybody needs to take you seriously. The minute you start giving excuses of, "Oh, but I have to be home at so and so time," that's it. Your employer is not going to take you seriously. I mean, when I have juniors who are women and who tell me, "No ma'am, but I have to go home at 6:37," I understand it, but in my mind I'm going to make a note saying, okay, if I give her something that's high pressure, how is she going to handle it? Right? You need to put up that image. You may be going through several things, but at the end of the day, it's worth the effort that you put in. It is definitely more effort than, well, according to me, I think it's more effort than what a man puts in to get to the same place, but it's worth it, because end of the day you need to have a sense of achievement of what you've done. And I think financial independence for a woman, which is my pet thing to tell every woman, is that financial independence is very important, irrespective. I mean, you may not make it up to the point that your male counterpart has made it to at your age. It's fine, you'll still get there, but that does not mean that what you've done so far is not worth anything. Just keep at it, don't give up, whether it's wedding break or a health issue break, or aged parents, maternity break, whatever it is, right? I mean, I was negotiating a deal the night before I delivered my second child. I took one day off, and the second day we signed that deal. Why should these things, you put a system in place. If you want a junior, you get a junior in place. You want two juniors at a point where you think that you're not going to be able to do this, all your income you can pay juniors, just so that your practice keeps going for the period that you're not in practice.
Yeah, I think this is really very inspiring. So the message is very simple from Goda for all the young ladies and girls out there. Don't give up. Please keep doing whatever you do and let the breaks not stop you. Surely you'll get to where you want to be. So now, Goda, that you inspired all the young ladies out there, we'll come back a little bit to about the profession and to take a bird's eye view. So can you please tell us, for someone who's been around for 10 years, what are the kind of trends you're seeing in the transactional space when it comes to PE funding or private equity or generally corporate law work? What are the trends which you're seeing in the recent past? That is the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, what are the future trends which you foresee?
So I don't think the concept of startup PE was even existent 10 years ago, which is now there. But till now, I would say that it has been general. Anybody who does PE in every sector.
Yes.
Right? You are sector agnostic. You do PE in any sector. PE is basically private equity. A private equity subset would be a venture capital, VC funding. When you hear VC funding, it means a company that has just started out and you're doing early stage investment, the first round of investment.
Yes.
PE can be any time. Like even now, if Reliance is raising some amount of money, that would not really qualify as VC funding. That would come under PE funding.
No, legally, it's pretty much the same when you look at it legally.
Yeah, documentation is the same, just the
Yes.
nomenclature of things is
True.
different, right? So till now, transactional work itself was one big basket. Everybody would do M&A, you do JVs, you do anything which is non-disputed, basically. Agreement types would be one general
Correct.
term of sorts, right?
True.
But now I think there's a lot of specialization that has now started coming in. Even verticals like saying, okay, in PE, I'll do only tech, or I'll do SaaS, or I'll do agri, or edtech. Even in tech itself, fintech, edtech is all specialized by itself because the laws in each of these spaces are so niche. Right
Exactly.
now, let's say if you may do fintech, but you may not do insurance. You may do real estate tech. So each thing is different. The laws in each of it is different. The fundamental agreement is the same, but simple question, like in this particular, if I'm doing this particular business, how much foreign funding can I get? Right, if that's a constantly changing sort of a question that the law keeps changing in that. So like this, laws keep changing always. So nowadays we're seeing specializations in each sector. Even things like say due diligence is very different from negotiating a particular transaction, right?
True.
As this is one space that I think company secretaries have a, if you have like if you are a main company secretary, pursuing company secretary as your main profession, I think to be able to provide a due diligence wing by itself to law firms is a huge value add that you can bring to the table. Because due diligence is basically say, okay, how has this company done business so far? And I think that a CS would be more qualified than a lawyer to be able to answer these questions practically, right? So if you went to a law firm and said, okay, we will handle the due diligence part, you handle the documentation part, right? It's a big takeaway, a huge load off the law firm, which nowadays law firms have their own separate DD team. But if
Correct.
a CS team is able to support law firms, I think that would be a huge value add. So like that, we see a lot of specialization. And I think even going forward, like you notice that there's so many new areas which are coming up, like
Yes.
AI, big data, all of these things are all new areas. Space tech, all this is new and it's now upcoming, right? As we go ahead, the way I see it is that it has to become a lot more specialized. There
Okay.
is a lot of money in it, but I think
Mhm.
that um, being good, paying attention to detail, which is extremely important, starting from how you frame your sentences, how you express your thought. You don't have to put 20 sentences in. How you draft your emails. Everything shows a sense of professionalism for the client to get, that kind of confidence in you.
True. In fact, as you were speaking, you were talking about the huge areas which are coming up. So, and also why I asked this question was related to my next question. That is, as a student who's studying either only CS or CS with law, or maybe CS with, let's say, a regular BCom or an MBA, things like that. For doing a 3 year law course, they'll open up all these opportunities which you just told right now. So, how positive are you for someone who's going to get into the profession next 2, 3 years about the corporate law work which you spoke right now? What are the opportunities for them?
Okay, so firstly, when you graduate and you have your degree in your hand, work with somebody, right? Don't head out to say, okay, I want to set up my practice on day one.
True.
It'll take a beating on your own confidence because you don't have that shelter above you or the cover or the mentorship to be able to go ahead. Even though you have friends or seniors who are willing to guide you, working with somebody as being attached to an office is a very big deal. So that step, according to me, is very important. When you pick a particular office, you say, okay, which office has the kind of work which I like. Secondly, more than what you like, look at the office that has a lot of work. I mean, money is okay, fine, all right. But initial first 2 years, go to the office that actually has a lot of work, variety of work. So you do, all those 4 or 5 different areas or 10 different areas of work. As you start doing it, you will walk down one or the other avenue that interests you, right? To be able to say today, oh, is my qualification enough today for an area of work that could come up 10 years from now? It's impossible to say. Like I told you, right, when I graduated from law school, what I studied at that point in time to what I'm doing today has almost no connection, excepting the Companies Act, which was 1956 at that point, and now it's 2013. Other than that, the concept of PE itself was very, very, very minimal. Right? So, what you're doing today, you can only plan that much. Just ensure that you get into an office that has a lot of work, so you try out different areas of work and you learn on the job.
Okay, great. Now, another question which students ask, because most of them are studying CS, is that we study company law in depth, but for someone like you who's working mainly into transaction work, can you briefly share with the students what are the different kinds of laws that you have to work with or you have to study and which will come in handy when you do your work, apart from Companies Act?
Yeah. Apart from the Companies Act, the Contract Act, which is very crucial. Sale of Goods Act, if that is an area, usually, let's say about 60% or 70% of the time, you will have to go back to that act as well to refer. Then the LLP, because a typical question which will come to you is, I mean, fundamental question: should I incorporate an LLP or should I incorporate a
Company.
company? Which
Yes.
is which is better. So things like that to be able to advise your client, especially in the early days when you start up. The first thing is some friend will come and say, oh, listen, I have this idea, I want to incorporate a company or LLP, which one should I do? Right? That
Yes.
will be your first client. Those are definitely your first few clients that come to
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
So that is one this thing. Other than that, obviously, the FEMA, because in case you're advising on a company which has foreign money, whether it is under FCRA or it is investments, then FEMA is very important to study. And it is good to have to know the SEBI Act and the regulations that go with it. Generally, because you never know, what if you open up an opportunity with a company that is a listed company. When the client comes to you, you can't say, oh, hold on, but I didn't study my SEBI laws properly. So to be able to on the job, you can always read up and say, okay, oh, this particular regulation says this.
Hmm.
But if you don't even know where to look or you have no idea at all as to what this area of work is, I think that it would not portray confidence to your client. So these would be the initial few acts to study. If you want to do disputes a little bit, maybe the Arbitration Act, because that would be the typical clause that comes in. Or if a company receives a notice and you are the in-house company secretary, then they'll give you the notice and say, okay, now what do I do with this? I've got this notice. So the
Hmm.
Arbitration Act will give you a sense of perspective. But yeah, I think by and large, these would be the acts.
Okay, great. So now we are coming to the back end of our interview. So here, can you share what are the skill sets? Like when you study the law, you pass your exams, and you work somewhere. But beyond all this, there are some core skills required to be successful, whether you're a corporate lawyer or a CS. So what do you think are these core skills which every student should work on?
For me, I think the most important skill, I mean, most important thing is firstly ethics, because ethics will take you literally anywhere that you want to go. If you're an honest
Exactly.
professional, people will be happy to give you work, to refer work to you, without taking away their client or making that person insecure that, okay, I've referred this person you don't want to overstep. When you set up that kind of a level for yourself to say, okay, this person is, his ethics are top notch, I think that you're able to build up work a lot better, because people refer work to you. Initial days, work only comes through references, some friend, some colleague, all
Yes.
that, right? In addition to that, I think basically public speaking, right? Which is, I won't say public speaking, but I would say confidence in whatever you say. If you're talking
Yes.
about something, and I think confidently saying what you're saying, you'll be saying the right thing. But if you hesitate and say it, then the other person who already doesn't know what you're saying is going to wonder, oh, he's only not confident, or she's only not confident of what she's saying. Uh, is she saying the right thing? Right?
True.
Okay. Confidence in what you're saying. And I think English, fundamental English is very, very important. When you draft your note to the board, your briefing note to the board, an email that you're sending to the client, even a simple application cover letter itself, commas need to have commas, full stops need to have full stop, capital letters, you can't just you capitalize any word that you feel like capitalizing. So I think these are very small things that show professionalism. Promptly responding to whether it's a message or mail or whatever it is. Initial few years, it is like that. You have to respond, especially if you have your own practice, right? So I think these
Yes.
are pretty core skill sets.
Yeah, in fact, as Goda was speaking, recently I met a very senior advocate. So I was just generally talking to him after our core discussion, like, sir, someone who is much younger to you, what would you suggest to a young professional? So he said, if you really want to be heads and shoulders above all your competition, ethics is what you really should be, and that you will get recognized very soon. People will know because it's a small world, and people will talk about it. And that's exactly what even Goda shared right now. So I just remembered that I wanted to tell. So you were talking about the skills, and you said about communication in English. So when we talk about soft skills, apart from communication in English, would you like to add anything else, or do you think that's enough for students to know?
I mean, initially, as a student, I think it's not an overnight process. You can't pick this up overnight, right?
Yes.
You need to, whether you are writing now, write articles, publish. That is a process that you start doing as a student, so that when you get into the profession, I'm sure you'll agree with me that you literally have no time to do anything else. Your
True.
first few years, yes, you need to write, keep writing, because writing and speaking are two ways of marketing yourself. The most allowed ways of
Yes.
marketing yourself. So as a student, it's okay. You're permitted to write not necessarily top notch quality articles, but you learn with every article that you write. You learn, and today there are enough and more platforms for you to publish your work. It's not that, oh, I need to talk to only one particular journal or one particular newspaper that writes. Right, just keep writing, because end of the day, if you want to be known, your name needs to be there on the internet.
Exactly. I
That's
think
the reality of our profession. Your name just needs to be there.
Yeah, I think you have really shared it. And before we go ahead, again, I want to draw the attention of our viewers and students. Every guest on the World of Company Secretaries has told that communication, basic English has to be there for each one of you. And these are elementary stuff which you can't do away with. You should have your basic communication, English, and the confidence to speak. And even Goda has shared this today. So, Goda, as we come to the end of our interview, how would you share your thoughts to the students about the struggle which they have ahead, because they always see it as a struggle? When I asked you initially, you said it was not really a struggle or challenge, but I enjoyed it, and you could sail through this. So what made you enjoy, and what is your message to the students who are doing the course?
I think the way to enjoy it, okay, according to me, is to plan, to have a schedule in place. The minute you have a 6 month schedule, saying, okay, I have 9 subjects or 6 subjects, and I have the next 6 months or the 9 months, and I'm going to make out a particular timetable, and I'm going to stick to it. Yeah, there will be some days where you may take more time, or you're unwell, or something comes up that you're not able to stick to that particular. It's okay. That doesn't mean that the entire schedule you put is useless. At least 90% you should be able to stick to that timeline. You know, okay, I can do only this much in a particular day, or maybe within 2 weeks from starting that schedule, you realize, okay, I think I've set an unrealistic timeline for myself. this is something that I may not be able to do. Or you'll probably realize, you know what, I'm better off studying in the morning than studying late into the night. Or during the day, maybe in the afternoons where generally, it's a little more silent and people are doing their own work, you also probably are able to study better. Right? So you yourself will understand. Instead of waiting till the last moment and then trying to cram everything and study everything, I think it's easier to plan well in advance, and compared to the resources that we had 10 years ago, which was only the CS material that the institute gave us, right? I wouldn't say, I mean, they can put only that much in it, right? For somebody who wants a different perspective or a little beyond the book to understand what is in that book or to get a practical feeling, we had no resources. I mean, today there are so many YouTube videos, there are so many platforms like, Excel itself. There are so many such platforms that help students who are out there. There are videos, there are audios, there are articles on the internet, so much for you to read, right? So when you put all of this together in a meaningful way, I think that it doesn't appear as a struggle. It would come across as a journey that you will enjoy. When you look back at it, these are your golden days where you can actually study and actually learn. Because once you're through this and you get into the profession, you literally do just that particular deal or that particular client. What is the work? You'll do that much. That's it. And once that client, that assignment is over, you move on. It's not like that stays in your mind or you've studied it, or it's just not like that. It's different. So enjoy this time as a student and study adequately so that you use all the opportunities that come your way.
Yeah, I think I'm sure students will be really motivated and inspired by this interview. So thanks a lot, Goda. That was Goda Raghavan, partner at AK Law Chambers, who is a lawyer and company secretary, who shared her experience right from the day when her dad gave her a form and said join CS till the day recently where she closed a 100 crore private equity deal. So thanks a lot, Goda. Thanks a lot for joining us. We look forward to have you in the future also.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
So, dear students, that was Goda Raghavan. For more such episodes of the world of company secretaries, please do subscribe to Excel Academy and also let us know what you felt about this interview in the comments below. We'll be happy to reply. Thank you and subscribe to Excel Academy, your one stop solution for the CS course.